welcome to Model Horse Tack School. My name is Carrie, and today we're working on medieval stirrups. So that's what the pattern looks like, and we're going to try making these. This is like a prototyping session, so you get to see all of my experiments. The first one is this. I'm going to take this really thin. It's a 2-3 ounce, but it shrank really good when it was dyed. So now it's much thinner. But I'm going to try, and then I glued this brass onto it. So this is a brass foil. I don't see these in the store anymore. It's that 10-year cycle thing. So if you start seeing the embossing foils in your craft store, snag them because they're only around for a short time. So I have glued it. It's attached here and here. I'd have to re-glue this section, but I glued it to the foil to give it some body, and so now I'm going to cut out the pattern. And you guys know I like to use my stick glue. I think I get a better cut this way. And we'll see how we can make these. Okay, so with most prototyping sessions, right about here I get into my head and I stop talking because I'm thinking. I use Elmer's glue, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. I don't make you watch me cut things out very often, but so that you can see, I use a stick glue. I used Elmer's to put the pattern in place. Now, it didn't dry, so the paper is slipping. So that was kind of annoying. And originally, I used super glue to do the leather to the foil. It actually didn't hold very well. So I was just using an area where it was kind of still attached. And now because the paper was slipping, I was going to go ahead and try doing a razor knife here. And problem with the razor knife is that the surface I'm on wasn't grabbing the foil, so it was slipping, and that wasn't working that much better. I mean, all I really needed to do was wait a little while for the paper to dry, but like a lot of people, once I get into my head and start creating something, I'm not, I'm just rolling along with it. And I've made stirrups before for the Arabian horse costume book. This is kind of based on that. So those lines, the 1, 2 in the center, that's for the base of the stirrup where the foot goes. And that's for either bending or scoring a line in leather, depending on what you're doing. This is a combination of leather and metal. I didn't have any metal that's thick enough in bronze or gold that would allow me just to use the one medium. But I wanted to see what it would look like if I did it this way and give it a true metal look. I mean, you could certainly do this to Western stirrups if you want that, silver looking outline. Is put leather inside and then use the metal on the outside like an aluminum or a pewter. So doing this gives you then what can I do with other saddle types. It's a skill, just playing with different mediums to make the same thing and seeing what the outcome is. So here again, the paper is moving on me. And again, I'm focused more on what I'm doing than if my hands are actually viewable in the camera. Every once in a while now, I try and force myself to look up and see, what I've got going on for you guys. But a lot of times when I'm prototyping without the camera on, I don't care. That one didn't cut all that well. It's all right. It's a prototype. We're going for what will this look like when it's done. And here I have, I've got it laid out flat and I need to bend it. So I'm using another piece of the pattern since the other fell off. And what I'm going to do And at first I tried the ruler, but I need to bend up like that. And this only works like this because there's metal on the other side that's strong enough to hold it up. Um, and then I need to bend the other side, and I'm like, well, I can't fit that ruler in there, so I need something else with a sharp edge. And I decided to pick on my platypus pliers because they have a nice sharp edge, and try to get that where it says on the pattern. Now the other line that's on each side, that's for bending the stirrup over, and we'll be doing that next. But here you go. That's the bottom of the stirrup. And of course, we'll need to do that to the other side. I won't make you watch it. Okay, so I have the bottom shaped on both of them. Now I have to figure out how I'm going to make the top. So it needs to be bent over or around to the other side. And so then I realized the foil's coming off. That super glue did not hold it really well. I'd used these for the Pony Express brass locks, and it held fine um, on that until I had to edge coat, which helped to glue the sides around. But this is leftovers from making the Pony Express saddle. So just putting on the glue. Turns out this was good because I needed to make some modifications. And the first one was how to get this to glue. I wasn't going to trust the metal to leather, so I decided I was going to probably need to nick off some of that or clip off some of it at the top so that it would have a place to stick. I'm already sitting here thinking about it as I'm doing this, even though I shouldn't. Shouldn't be gluing it all the way. So once I got that re-glued, and it looks like they're even, and now that's coming over, and I'm going to glue it on the inside so I get the rounded top. Now this is close to what I had in that medieval picture, and this is my first prototype attempt. It came out good enough that I went with it, but now that I look at it, I'm thinking I could have found a way to attach a jump ring at the top and make it like some of those where this, you have this stirrup and then you have that loop at the top, usually going in the same or opposite direction. Opposite direction makes sense because then you don't have that twist in the stirrup leathers. We don't do that these days. I don't know why. Okay. So here I'm just, this is the step I'm up to in my head. I haven't jumped forward to the next step yet. If I had, I would have just gone ahead and done the next step. But I wanted to make sure this part was going to work. So, and I got to glue these, so I shouldn't make you sit through that, but it's just the reality of dealing with foil, metal, and leather. And oddly, this Aleene's actually holds metal on really good if you get it properly saturated. So again, gluing it, cleaning it. I like to clean the metal while the glue is still wet. Waiting till it dries, you have to kind of scratch it off, and then that scratches the surface of the sheet metal or the foil. All right, trying to do the bend about where that line is. Remember the line in the pattern? And that's where you would bend over to if you needed that pattern. I'm comparing to make sure they're about the same size. And here I am snipping off that foil. Now I didn't glue it on this one because I realized on the first one that I wasn't going to need glue all the way up. I'm being very generous with this glue. this leather, it's dyed on both sides, so it doesn't really want to, and again, matching height. It didn't really want to stick. I had to work at it. So that 5 second hold wasn't working, and that was kind of annoying. So go ahead and put that clamp there. Give it time to set up. It can take a few minutes if it doesn't happen right away. So here's where now I figured out what I'm going to do next on this. I'm going to peel back the foil that I glued down. I'm going to get rid of some of this leather. These are really good nose hair clippers, or nose hair scissors. And I do a lot of metal cutting with these, reserve them for my aluminums and aluminum can and regular foils. So I expect them to go dull, but they're not that expensive. I think I got a 6-pack of them, so pretty good. All right, glued down that foil after I clipped off the leather underneath. And that'll be helpful to do over here. It'll help that piece of leather that doesn't want to behave itself. I mean, it's my first one, so my first set, I think it's okay. There are things I would do differently. Every time I watch, I critique my technique, not the results. It's really important when you're making anything, is critique your technique and not the results, because it's the technique that gives you results. Okay, so are these perfect? Are they great? No, but I don't want to spend $25 on a pair of medieval stirrups if I can just use leftovers from a previous project, right? So we're talking pennies here to do this prototype, and I would much prefer to find a way to use my skills instead of just spending, because I don't, I have a limited budget for my, most of us do, limited budget for my my hobby here. And prototyping, I use the cheapest or leftover materials that I have, and then once I know, yeah, that's what I want, then I will start investing the more expensive materials in. So like I said, this was just basically leftovers from another project. All right, so I get to this point and I realize I need to edge coat. So gold Sharpie. Sharpies are awesome for stuff like this. I could have gotten out gold paint, but I'm not as good with paint brushes as I am with pens. So I'm going to get a lot more precision using a Sharpie, because I really just want the edge. I don't want to accidentally paint the foil. I don't want to actually paint the inside. I like the fact that the inside's a different color. That's why I did it this way. So there we go. We're just doing the edge coat all the way around, both sides. Doesn't really take that long. And then yeah, and it dries faster than paint. It gives a slightly metallic that matches the foil, blends in really good. And it's just a gold Sharpie. I have a lot of different colors of Sharpies. Of course, my favorite are black and brown, but there we go. Almost done. Nice, pretty awesome. So simple. I think I'm happy with those stirrups. They came out pretty good. And last thing is to shape the top. So I took a pair of pliers and somewhere the shape that I'm looking for, and trying to put some shape into the top. And that way we get the rounded top, flat bottom. Here's number 2. Well, that didn't come out right. So this is prototype number 2. And this one is going to be basically the same thing. I'm going to cut it out. Now you can see that's a piece of scrap leather. It's flawed. I'm not going to be able to use it for a lot of things, but I can use it for this. So I keep a lot of my scrap because I can then prototype with it. And hear me, it's all cut out. La la. Clean things up a little bit. I love making sure my workstation is clean. Now I need for the leather to go like that. Only it wants to bend. So I'm going to score a line. I do a lot of scoring when I want a sharp bend. Oh yeah, and I always have pieces of the pattern lying around when I'm prototyping to make sure I can, do different things. So if you don't have brass foil, then you can do it this way. We're going to score along that lower line because we need a sharp turn, a sharp bend. And of course, my knife isn't very sharp. It's time to get a new one. But I usually get a new one when I'm starting a whole brand new project. And this has already gone through the medieval saddle, um, the rear drapes, the breast collar. So I mean, it's pretty much dulled. I got a new saddles coming up, so I have the blades out ready to change, but I'll wait. Okay. Now this helps us get that sharp bend. Okay, it's much sharper than if you bent it without the scoring. And this will work because I plan to paint. I plan to paint these, so the paint will go into that line and it won't show. Paper is still, I mean, the glue is still a little bit wet, so it's harder to get off. Normally when I do a pattern, I cut the whole thing out, and then the next day I'll start, peeling off the paper and getting the other cuts and pokes and holes and whatever in it. And so the glue is dry. So here I realized that if I'm going to bend that over, I should thin the edges. And usually I get out my skiving board. I didn't, so it's kind of lazy. This paper did not want to come off. I remember that. So if you ever want to practice skiving, glue paper to the back of your leather like this, and then scrape it off. Okay, this here is all that skiving is really. I'm just going to the depth of the paper to peel it off, and gives you a feel for what skiving is, because if you can get it there, see, that felt good. You get right under and start pushing that paper off, and that's what skiving is. Yes, it's true, you can skive through, done it millions of times, but you got to learn how to do it. Okay, now I cleaned up my board. I just can't stand a messy workstation. So I pause often. I've got a trash can underneath my desk, my working desk. Scraps go in there, clean off the board. I even put away tools and just make sure it's clean. All right, again, this is where you would put that end where it shows on the pattern piece to that other line, okay? And that's what that other line is for. And now fold it over. And about this time, I'm thinking, wow, I wonder, yeah, I probably could put a loop right there. But decided we'll just stick with the simple. You can get more complex. Just trying to give you ideas. When you have a pattern, there are things you can do with that pattern and make modifications. And I am totally for you coming up with your version. I'm not one of those crazy people who, only do it my way. No, I want you to find your way. That's an important thing. You need to find your way. But I'll show you, there's ways to make stirrups. And this is 3 ways I'm going to show you. I know a couple others. And that is because growing up, we didn't have a Rio Rondo. So if I wanted stirrups or buckles or anything, I had to make my own. And in the case of this medieval, it's perfect, right? I don't know if I would do live show quality tack with homemade stirrups unless I cast my own, right? They were cast in something, um, in like an acrylic or a metal. But something like this for medieval or for Arabian, I've made stirrups out of fabric before for Arabian costumes, cardboard covered in fabric. Works perfectly. Okay, so one of those is a little bit too big, but um, it's all right. It'll work. So I'm using an enamel. It's a glass. It's for glass. The enamel, like testers, you can't use that on leather. It never dries. Okay, but this is a different type of enamel, so don't use testers. Won't work. I know it makes, beautiful, beautiful metallic color, um, but for whatever reason, it touches leather and it just won't dry. It won't dry at all. All right, just going to paint this. I'm going to edge coat it, paint it both sides. Rather than holding it with my fingers, I went ahead and got my rounded pliers, my little fingers, and went ahead and held it with those. That's why I can get as much as possible um, first time round. Now this stuff, this paint, um, it dries pretty quickly because it is it's not, I don't know, it's not metallic based. It's almost maybe a latex based. I don't know what the answer is on this. I just know this gives a gold sheen on leather, and it dries and sticks really well. So like I said, do the edge coat, do the inside. This whole thing needs to look like it's metal. And then I'm not going to make you watch paint dry because that's about what we were at here. But there's both of those painted. Perfect. That means on to the third option. Now I'm going to go through this really quickly, but basically I took, this is wax. This is the jeweler's wax. And that stirrup was my pattern. And so I'm just etching out with my needle on a stick what that stirrup looks like. Now I was thinking I wanted to make a like a hole in the top. I ended up making quite a few things here. See, my head's in the way of the camera because I need to see. So basically, I'm sketching it and then I'm making it thicker, deeper actually, deeper and deeper, making sure I got the shape that I want. This wasn't perfect. So I was thinking, okay, I can make that up there. Not on this one, but now I'm going to take out my nail drill. I've got different bits. Some of them came with the nail drill. Some of them are Dremel, the rotary tool bits. Just have to make sure they're going to fit the inside of your spindle size, collet size, whatever. So these were the smallest ones in my rotary tool. And this way I can start getting rid of, and that's what I'm doing, is I'm trying to etch out what I want in there and using the different drills. I'm trying to put this as fast as my software let me go. That's where I decided that might be a little bit too much for me. That hole in the top. The next one I did, I put the hole in the top and it would not cast well. So, and that's really all we're doing here is creating a mother so then I can cast the stirrups in acrylic, and then paint them, you know. Or I don't have any gold powder. I have silver powder, so it'd work okay with silver, but since I want to make everything gold. So I switched to a more aggressive bit. So you start out, you etch it, then I get a bigger etching so I actually see it in the light because it's really hard to see. I think I have my 400X glasses on here. And the lighting has to be right too until it's right about this point. Now I can see, what I'm trying to get rid of. So I'm just getting more and more aggressive using different tools, etching it out, being really careful not to take anything from the actual stirrup itself. So here I'm just working on getting rid of the inside, and like I said, it's this one bit here is much more aggressive. It takes out more wax each time, and the cool thing with this wax, see, now you can see, okay, this, now we're talking. I am going to be able to get that out of the wax. And see how it's taking out a whole bunch more. But I created a groove using that other bit so that I wouldn't accidentally slip off and ruin the stirrup itself. So it's just going in that groove. And even though this is a nail drill, it still melts the wax. Okay, because it's the friction. So, but I need to get that stirrup out of the wax so that I can smooth it out and make it ready for casting. So if you're interested in casting your own, it's not much different. You know, you got the pattern now. Make it out of leather and use it to etch out a stirrup. That's your pattern. And here I'm just thought I was going to use that top and as part of the casting. And then I decided since this is so flat, I can just do a shallow flat, which is what I did. Now, I didn't show you the results of the casting. This piece that I'm sculpting will not survive the molding process. This stuff is like really fragile and snaps really easily. So trying to find something I can use to smooth. Those are the bits that originally came with my nail drill. So here we're just smoothing out because anything, yeah, there it went. Anything, most of the casting mediums that are out there, it will pick up all the details. So if you have any types of marks in the wax, it will pick it up. And trying very hard then to smooth it, smooth around the edges, so I don't have sharp edges. This didn't come out all that great, but you know, it's still in one piece, which when I was doing the ring bit for the polo pony, the gag bit, that took more than one try. So this is not bad, but again, smoothing it out both inside and out to make this a suitable mother. But it's too fragile. This wax is too fragile to use it as an actual stirrup. All right, here's another bit. And this is another smoothing bit, but it's finer grain. So the first one was to get the big stuff. This gets the smaller stuff. And not exactly even on the bottom. I don't think it would be all that noticeable, but I can see it. You have to remember that you will be able to see every single flaw in your project. Nobody else will, unless it's major. So I'm not even sure anybody can tell, like I can, that the base on the stirrups are a little bit off. It's a little wonky. But this, I mean, if you're looking for it, you can see it. All right, so more and more of the smoothing, and almost done. A lot less residue on my table, so you can see, level of how aggressive the bit is on how much it leaves behind. And so this is not leaving a lot behind. Sorry, I'm outside the frame again. Okay, jumping forward to cleaning up after that whole mess. And that's what the stirrup looks like. But I made a few things that day. I got 2 stirrup types and a medieval bit type, and I'm still trying to figure out the molding and the casting on these 3 pieces. But there you go. Thanks for spending time with me today. Like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel, and have yourself a really good day.